So welcome to this webinar brought to you by Business Station and AusIndustry under the Digital Solutions Program. My name is Junie and I'm the founder of Propel Innovations. Thank you for having me workshop this session on building a competitive business by knowing your buyers better. And thanks to you for attending this workshop as well. It's a pleasure to be here to connect with this small business community. As part of Business Station's Digital Solutions Program, you have access to a 7-hour personalized business mentorship for only $44. You get to meet with experts face-to-face and online for all your digital solutions to help you succeed in your business. You're eligible for this program if you have an ABN registered in WA, Queensland, and the Northern Territory, or your business runs with the intention to make a profit, and you employ less than 20 full-time staff members. And if you need to find out more about the range of programs with Business Station, please visit the website www.businessstation.com.au. As mentioned earlier, my name is Junie and I'm the founder of Propel Innovations. Propel Innovations is a user experience service in the design and development industry to propel small and medium businesses and startups to eliminate the guesswork out of people's enjoyment of their website and mobile application to build so that you can build a successful business that customers keep coming back to. This is part of a 3-part series where in part 1, we learned how to engage with your potential customers as early as possible so that you build the right flow that will lead to better use of your digital properties and sales. In part 2, you receive tips that you can apply on your own business from a range of real-world businesses that invested in their user experience to simplify their processes for their customers so that their customers can purchase from them. And you learn that you can increase business conversion rates by doing so. Today is the last webinar of this 3-part series. You'll learn how you can dive deep into your users' minds, their emotions and motivations with the user-centered design canvas. And with this practical tool, you'll learn how to think about your users' problems from a big picture point of view by making small focused changes that make a big difference to your business. And in today's session, in part 3 of this free 3-part webinar series on building a competitive business by knowing your buyers better, we'll look at how you can dive deep into your users' minds, emotions, and motivations. You'll receive a brief intro into the user-centered design canvas and what each section of the canvas covers. You'll learn practical skills on how to best solve your users' problems on the user-centered design canvas and make small focused changes to position your offering with confidence. So this is going to be an interactive presentation. At times, I will be asking you questions, so I encourage you to participate and volunteer throughout the session, because this is an opportunity to connect and deliver real solutions for real people that want to keep coming back to your business and using your products or services. So please as well, feel free to leave your comments in the chat. So I want to know from a couple of you, why are you attending this session? So feel free to just jump on the camera and unmute yourself. And at the same time, if you're not comfortable with being on the camera, leave your comment in the chat. So I'd love to hear what brought you to this session today.
I just, oh, there's so much echo, it's awful. I can't do it,
Lauren is speaking, but I can't hear you. So probably there's an issue with your sound. But is anyone else, what was the reason why you decided to come today? Just leave a message in the chat. Was there something in particular that you wanted to learn for your own business? No, I'm assuming that people are just here to learn then. All right, so let's keep going. So just to let you know, what led me into UX, or what we call user experience, was a diverse background and rich experience working in customer service and with people in banking, events, hospitality, not-for-profits, and education. I discovered the importance of building empathy to solve people's problems and deliver a service that left customers satisfied. I also believe that my exposure to various cultures helped me understand certain barriers that I may not have had firsthand experience with. However, I had built empathy and learned to actively listen to people's stories. In addition, I decided to understand how systems work by studying policy design and management. With my creative thinking, solutions-focused attitude, strategic mindset, I learned to approach complex problems with solutions that matter for people. And it was in 2017 that I discovered design thinking. I was part of a service innovation and development team where we introduced a new approach to delivering services. Rather than assuming our solutions were the best solutions, we actually flipped the script and asked why not find out from those we serve the problems they face daily and how that affected them. I also was part of an IT team as an application support officer, where I helped the team implement a new software within an organization, which I noticed some issues in the implementation process. And the main issue is that staff was actually rejecting the software because no one actually asked them what would work well into the day-to-day work, into the day-to-day delivery of their program. Now, why am I sharing this with you? Well, because with user experience, or you would have heard it as UX, or as well as user-centered design or customer experience, with all that, it stems from the design thinking. It stems from focusing on understanding people's minds, their emotions and motivations. It also allows us to build products that actually solve real problems for real people. So with this bag of experience and transferable skills, I wanted to marry it all and help businesses like yourselves understand how important it is to engage with your customers early on so that they can keep coming back and doing business with you over and over and over again. So in part one of this three-part series, we explored that with 1% of users saying websites meet their expectations, businesses keep losing money from 99% of users because their website or app isn't user-friendly. So even if you build your website to your own taste, you're not meeting your users' expectations. All your users want is to get onto your platform and buy from you in easy steps. You and I, we've gone through this before. So remember to empathize with your customers about that same situation. In part two, we learned that every dollar invested in user experience design can bring a return on investment of $100 into your business. We saw from real world problems that designing your platform with your users will uncover what they like, what they don't like, and why. So simply put, right? When you understand the journey of your users' experience with your website by testing if it's usable for them, you're instantly building that trust with your customers. And that leads to loyalty and converts them into returning customers. So in today's last webinar of this three-part series, you're going to get practical tools to position your business ahead of your competition. And because there's a lot of competition online and it's a tough road to build an online business. So if you're already in the game and you're noticing that your customers keep leaving you, you do deserve to know why your customers keep leaving you and buying from your competition. And to beat the competition, you need to have your users by your side whenever you're designing your website or your app, so then you don't feel powerless in a swarm of competition. I want to hear from you as a business. What is the problem that you're solving for your customers and why? So leave in the chat or come and unmute yourself just to let us know what is it that you with your business you're solving for your customers. So I encourage you to share. This is interactive. This is about as well your learning process and understanding how that might work really well with your website. So if you want, you can type in the chat if you don't feel comfortable opening your camera. All right, so Shanab is saying that she's offering piano tutoring services. Okay, that's really good. Can you briefly explain why is that a solution? for your customers? Who are your customers? So yeah, so Sandra is saying, so just to continue with Shanab is saying mainly young kids aged 4 to 15. Okay, that's good. And Sandra is saying that she's selling art online, so selling artwork online. All right, so I'm assuming that for Shanab, who is offering services to young kids aged 4 to 14, your problem that you're solving is that there aren't enough piano lessons for that age group. Yes or no? Just type in the chat if yes or no. Yes, okay, sounds good. And for Sandra, selling artwork online, that is definitely a problem to solve. And I'm quite curious to know how you're doing that. So let's just hope that as we're continuing on, you can go ahead and share a little bit more about that book. Selling art online can be quite challenging, but let's use this as an opportunity to understand how you can actually solve it for your artists. So I want you to take 1 minute to write down each step your buyer takes with you. So that's from the moment they have a problem to the moment they finish buying from you. So think about, so just use right here in the screen, we've got these sentences where I want you to fill in those sentences. I suggest you to write it down because you'll come back to it at the end of the webinar. So I'll give you 1 minute. I'll let you know when we're at 30 seconds and then when we're at 10 seconds left. We can start now. So we've got 30 seconds. And remember that this isn't about, knowing exactly, just get an idea as to what you are providing as a solution for your customers. All right, 10 seconds. All right. So remember, this is just for you to sort of think about, all right, what does my customer do? What's the problem that they're having? How do they interact with me? And then afterwards, how do they end up buying from me? So we'll get back to that at the end of the session, but we're also going to unpack a lot of these statements along the session. So before we continue, I want to recap what user experience is. So if you've been in previous sessions, then you'll probably hear this again. But at the same time, if you're new here, this is a good opportunity for you to hear. So user experience, or also what we call UX, it starts from the moment you build a product, a service, or a technology. It's the experience the user gets from going to the journey of landing on your website or downloading your app to the result of what they wanted to get there in the first place. But most importantly, UX, or user experience, is about what people actually do and not what they say they do on your website or app. It's about why they stay at a specific place on your website for 2 minutes and then leave. But you could only find out about why they leave by speaking to them and observing what your users actually do. So no matter how big or how small your website is, the only size you should care about is a large pool of users happy to keep buying from you. So eliminate the guesswork out of building a website and app by meeting your users' expectations. With UX, you go through 2 stages in a repetitive loop until your users say, I want this, how do I buy this? So first, you start off by uncovering your users' experience. So we're talking about what do they like, what don't they like, and why. Then the next step, you design your user's experience based on their feedback. And you repeat this process every time you have a new design to build on. So let's break it down. When you're uncovering your user's experience, there are several steps to take. And I'm going to emphasize that this part is by far the most important for any design that you do, whether it's your website or your app. Now, you ask, well, why is that? Well, because it's the stage that you get exclusive access to your users' minds, their emotions, and their motivations. It's the part where you find out previous behaviors of similar experiences, and mostly from your competitors. Once you understand your customer's journey, you can define what the problem your user is, or what you can also call their pain points, and it gives you a clear direction on what types of solutions you can come up with and test those solutions with them. And then once you have a breadth of information from your users, you can start designing certain solutions for them. And it's all about getting creative with solutions. Build a website that's small and affordable so that you can test how useful the information is. Listen to what your users provide as feedback and make those changes. And I'm also going to emphasize that the stage where you're building that small and affordable design is there because you don't have to make it perfect. It's there for you to test it. So it's the reason why it needs to be simple and affordable, so that you can go back to your pool of users, test it with them, you get their feedback, and then you go back onto your design and you improve on it. And you go through this constant loop where you're continuously understanding even better what your users need. And it helps you validate whether your offering is getting better and meeting your customers' expectations, which is an addition and bonus compared to your competition. As a result, what you end up doing is you're driving customer loyalty to your business. The more you test if your website is user-friendly with your users, the easier and simpler they become for your users. And once you've gone to a stage where your users put their money where their mouth is, or they say, I want this, how do I buy this? That is when you know your website or your app is ready to launch. So let's go back to your buyer's journey, right? We had those sentences, but you also would know what your buyer's journey is from what you know as a business to your customers. And I want you to put yourself into your customer's shoes. Remember that the journey you wrote down earlier, right? We'll get back to it. Remember about the journey you wrote down earlier? We'll get back to it, right? At the end of the webinar. But today we're focusing solely on uncovering your user's experience. And that's the stage that you get exclusive access to your users' minds, their emotions, and their motivations. It's the part where you find out about your customers' previous behaviors of similar experiences, roadblocks they face, and motivations they have to find a solution to their problem. And it's what we call pain points. As the name says it, it's a pain for your customers to continuously hit a roadblock when all they want is a solution to their problem. So here's a problem that I want you to solve with a business idea. So you can get creative. It could be any idea that jumps to your mind, but it needs to solve your customer's problem. Here's customer A. We're going to name her Chanel. Chanel has been swimming every morning for the past 3 months. Suddenly, Chanel stops swimming. Why? Well, this is when you need to speak with Chanel to understand what has suddenly stopped her from swimming. You and your team can then think of assumptions, then ask Chanel at least 5 whys to get to the bottom of her problems, her motivations, her fears. So let's say this is what we uncovered. So the reason why she stopped was because it's getting colder and the swimming pool temperature is lowering. So Chanel is struggling to find the motivation to swim every morning. But Chanel wants to keep swimming. And it's part of her routine and it's what she likes to do to start her day. However, Chanel is afraid that she'll have to wait for summer to start swimming. Now, we've understood what the problem is, we've understood her motivation, we've understood her fear. what would be some solutions that you would come up as a business, right? So you can leave your ideas in the chat, or you can more than welcome to unmute yourself and share. So let's remember, Chanel is someone who's been swimming every day for 3 months. All of a sudden, her problem with her, she stopped swimming all of a sudden because of the fact that it's gotten colder. The swimming pool temperature has lowered, but she still wants to continue. What would be some solutions that you can think of? So Sandra jumped in, that's really good, in the chat saying heated pool. Yeah, that's one solution, that's a good solution. We, again, assuming it's a good solution, right, Sandra? Anyone else wants to think, what would be some solutions that you can think of? Again, put yourself in the customer's shoes. What would you want as a solution? What would be good for Chanel? Anyone else? All right, well, Lorraine says a different venue. Yep, go to a different swimming pool venue. Yep, those are really good answers. Buy a wetsuit. Yep, she can buy a wetsuit. Shana said, I don't know if it's possible or feasible, but thermal bathers. Ooh, that's a good one. Those are really good ideas. Okay, fantastic. So see, you've come up with an idea. Now let's keep that in mind, all right? And let's continue. Now that you know the solution, would you then, here we go. A, build your business from that idea from start to end and launch, or B, would you reach out to Chanel for her to validate if you're solving her problem, then build a small part of your business, get feedback, and repeat until the business is ready to launch? Which one would you go for, A or B? Leave it in the chat. And no answer is the wrong answer. So we got Sandra that says B, Chanel says B. Anyone else? All right, that's really good. All right, so this is the same principle, right? So we took the idea of a business idea, and it's also the same principle when you're designing your website or app. Your website or app is one of many touch points your customers will interact with. So if you've all answered B, you're on the right track, which is good. But if you thought about A, you're at the right place. So let's continue. So this is the user-centered design canvas. It's inspired by the business model canvas. The aim of this tool is to help you identify A, how well does my business satisfy my users' expectations? B, how well do I empathize with my customers' problems? And C, how well does my business offer a solution compared to others? Doesn't this tie in really well with your SEO? Your SEO will be relevant to what you've uncovered about your users. For example, with this small business that we talked about in part 2 of this webinar series, we received feedback from their customers on how they would use the website and what they would be looking for. We identified 2 problems customers were facing with other competitors. When on a competitor's website, they wanted to, 1, book themselves in and not have to wait for a referral, and 2, have the same person be with them rather than being constantly switched from one counselor or psychologist to another to avoid repeating their story. So we solved these problems when we tested the website with users who provided their feedback. And here are 2 solutions that we came up with. 1, we would satisfy our users by helping them in booking themselves in. We designed several book appointment buttons at each section of the website because it gave users the confidence that we understood their problem. And this is what Dave told us. B, we empathized with users by providing them a solution, which was that the coach would provide one-on-one support to meet their expectations, so they didn't have to go through the same bad experiences of the past, which was that they were being repeatedly switched from one counselor or psychologist. And also, by having that one-on-one support, it also meant that they wouldn't have to repeat their story, just like what the users shared as part of their feedback. And having users be part of the process of designing this small business website gave us clarity on what this business needs to offer to her customers compared to her competition. And by positioning her offer as a coach that is in between a GP and a psychologist, by positioning her offer as a coach that is in between a GP and a psychologist, what it did is that it made her distinguish herself from the competition of other services who are also providing mental health recovery assistance. Now remember Chanel. Chanel has been swimming every morning for the past 3 months, and suddenly Chanel stopped swimming. So how do we use the user-centered design canvas to solve Chanel's problem? As you can see, the board is numbered from 1 to 9. And on the left-hand side of the canvas, the fields focus on users, while the right-hand side focuses on the business. Now, what you need to do is that you need to fill out the user-centered design canvas by following the logical order of numbers from 1 to 9. And in each of these fields, you could write down on Post-it notes relevant information about these field categories. And when you follow the order, and what you need to do is follow from 1 to 9, the order of the category. And by the time you get to 9, you'll end up summarizing what your unique value proposition is. And we'll get into the details of that. But when you get to the unique value proposition, it needs to get to that point where it's only 1 or 2 sentences, no more than that. Because this is what you're going to end up saying to your customers. If they want to hear the keywords that are related to what their problems are, what their motivations are, what their fears are. So when you fill the fields, briefly write down your customer interviews. So anything that you've known about your users that you've spoken to about, or write down as well knowledge about your competitors. So this is knowledge that you would have found out by just doing some research online, by speaking to your users who would have already told you what their experience was like with your competitors, and any other useful insights into understanding your users and how your business solves your users' problems. So this is the part where I'm going to break down each step from number 1 to number 9. So step 1 is your business, right? So this is where you write down what the name of your business is, you write down a short description of what you offer. Then you look at your users, and then you think about, who are my users? So this is, again, we're talking about getting into the exclusive access into your users' minds, their emotions, and their motivations. And this is the part where I strongly recommend to give a name to your users. See what I did earlier when I gave you a problem? I named my customer. I said, customer A's name is Chanel. Why should I do that? Well, because it gives you a better and a clear idea of who you are talking to. You are humanizing the actual problem. So it's different when you're, say, customer A, because it feels more like, a letter or a number, than if you give your users a name. So do give your users a name so you can personalize the experience, and you can personalize and empathize what does it mean to be in that person's shoes. So when you're at that section of your users, identify all potential types of users. So their name, their age, demographic, location. These are all quite important because you need to start from somewhere, and starting small, then once you start building your website, once you start reaching out to more customers, or that these customers refer you to others similar to them, you end up increasing your pool of users that way. Number 3, it's your users' problems, right? So remember we talked about Chanel. Chanel is a great example. We mentioned that she stopped swimming because of the fact that the pool was cold, because of the fact that, the pool was cold, and at the same time that the water temperature of the pool was lowering. So you need to complete this section of your users with any hypothetical problem that you can think of, or existing problems that your users would have shared with you. And the problems would be the ones that you would match then with your business solution or your website solution. Then you look at your users' motivations. So what are your users' emotional drives? Like, what drives them? What motivates them to get in contact with your business? So say, for example, with Chanel, we had We had the option of wetsuits or going to a different venue or heated pool or thermal bathers. What would motivate Chanel to come and meet and contact you to access any one of these solutions? Then you think about your users' fears. And this is any kind of anxiety that your users may feel, right, when contacting your business. Because it may be things like, I'm worried that it might be too expensive, or I'm worried that, like, you know, they won't have my size. So those are the types of fears that we're talking about, right? What are some of the constraints that someone can go through, or the anxieties they may feel in contacting your business? Or the worries, the concerns they may feel when contacting your business. Then we move on to the right side of the canvas, and that's your solution. And the solution is where you match with what the problems are, right? On the left-hand side in number 3 of the canvas, we looked at what the problems were. So you check the problems that you identified, and then you describe existing solutions, just like what you mentioned earlier, the heated pool, going to a different venue, or having thermal bathers. Then you think about your competition. So what are some of the alternatives that someone like Chanel or their user would actually be going to? What would be, instead of contacting you, where would someone like Chanel go instead, right? So think about your business, think about your customers. Who else that this person can go to? It can be a physical place, it can be a website, but it could also be another, something else that they might not, that's not necessarily tangible. So I'll give an example. For example, coffee is a great example because, for example, I can go buy coffee at your business, or I can go to your competitor to buy coffee, but something that's intangible or that you might not think of is that I might as well just drink coffee at home. So think of it that way, right? Like, think broad in terms of what are the possibilities. And then you hit number 8, which is what's your advantage against your competition? And this section contains any features or characteristics that distinguish your business from your competitors. So for example, the idea of going to a different venue. You might actually be the only swimming pool in your location that has heated pool. So that might be a characteristic. Or you might be the same venue that sells thermal bathers. That might be a characteristic. So think of what can make you different, what makes you special. Then you think about your position. So that's your value, your unique value proposition. And it should only be a summary of everything that you've described, but in 1 or 2 sentences. And then this way, that's how you know if you're solving your users' problems and building positive user experience. So that's how you complete a whole user design canvas. This is something that you can do in half an hour, 1 hour, if you're doing it by yourself. But if you've got a team, it could take about 1.5 to 2 hours. So let's look at canvassing a solution for Chanel, right? The same way that we know what her problem is, we're going to put that information across the whole canvas. So we've got here a canvas for Chanel. So I'm going to read out the sticky notes. I've already worked out something for you, but this is just an example of how it might look like, right? So we're starting off with a business, and I came up with the name Park a Swim. My user is Chanel, and she's a swimmer. This is also the part where we could have added her name, her age, we could have added where she lives, and so on and so forth, right? We can go into more details, but the most important is her name or your customer's name and who that person is. But mostly the name is key in this situation. Then we look at the problems, right? So we identify that she stopped because it's cold outside and she's no longer motivated because of it, right? The water temperature has lowered in the pools, in the pool that she goes to. But in the motivation section, we know that she does like her routine and she does like to start her day with swimming. But, and this is in the fears, we add that she's afraid that she'll have to wait until summer. So you see how we've looked at on the left-hand side, what the problems are, the motives, and the fears. Then we need to match this with the solutions that we're providing in the solution in number 6. So this is where, as a solution, we're going, okay, well, as a swim parka, we're going to offer swim parkas that are available at any swimming pools, where you can rent one from your nearby swimming pool on our website or buy your own on our website. Then the alternative that we thought of is that she could wear warmer clothes on the way to the pool, or she'll end up acclimatizing to the weather and still continue on. But our competitive advantage is that it's accessible, because if you go to a pool, you have access to it, and it's affordable because you can either rent it, or if you want to, or we also give you the choice to buy from it. And then this is where we decided to come with a unique value proposition, which is Parka Swim offers swim parkas available for rent at your local pool, or purchase your own online so you can keep swimming all year. So this is why it's important to break down every step of what your users are going to experience, because if you understand their problem, then it's a lot easier for it to drive them and make them stay onto your website. Now I will share, I'm going to share a link of this board onto Miro, which I'm sharing in the chat right here, so you can have access to it if you need it as a way to, apply it for your own business. It's a good example to then just get you to think about what you're offering as a business, what your users' fears are, what their motivations are, and what their problems, and how your solution solves their problem. And this is something that you can do for anything that you provide. So whether it's on your website, whether it's on your app, keep thinking, keep going back to who your user is and what their problems are, what their motivations are, and keep thinking about, how do I solve this for them? And keep asking your users how you can keep talking to your users so you can understand how to best solve their problem. Now, we're going to go back to your buyer's journey, and I'm going to ask if you can as well share with us, based on what you had filled earlier at the beginning, and now knowing what you know, look at these sentences again and think about if there's anything that you would have changed or that you would change. And if you're going to change things, think about like what your users' minds, their emotions and motivations would be, and how you would position it yourself ahead of your competition. And let us know, like, what would you be tweaking as part of your buyer's journey, and why? I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and I'd like for you to, if you finished earlier, just share with us in the chat, or you're more than welcome to jump online and to jump on the camera and unmute yourself and share with us. So this is the buyer's journey from the beginning, from the start of the webinar. Think about what you feel at the beginning, and then what would you tweak now that you know how to think about your users' minds, emotions, and motivations. So I'll give you 2 minutes starting now. All right, so can anyone share with us, what have you tweaked, if there's anything that you've tweaked as part of your buyer's journey, now that you know what you know about how to think about your users' motivations, emotions, and fears. And remember, like, don't worry if it's not all correct. The whole point of this is about getting you to start practicing about how I can think of my users. Who would like to share? Okay, Sandra. So Sandra responded, security of purchasing online. Is that part of the buyer's journey? Or if I understand correctly, are you saying that before people were purchasing online, but there was no security, but now you know what you know, you're thinking, actually, I should make sure that it's secure. Is that what I'm understanding, Sandra? Okay, Sandra is not responding yet. Maybe she's going to give us a bit more details, but that's fine. We'll get back to that. Now, Shana says, clearly communicating our vision and values. Okay, I'm curious to understand why, because what is that? How is that related to what, let's say, because you're targeting young people, but at the same time, it's the parents that will end up buying these lessons. So maybe let us know what part of the buyer's journey does communicating the vision and values, solving problems for your court. So Sandra came back to us saying that she hasn't built the website, but wanted to make it secure before launching. Yeah, very good. Because Sandra, if I'm just going back into the chat, but Sandra, you're selling artwork online, and you're sure, you're right. I think especially in terms of art online, it's very easy to have your art being sold and at a different name. So that's one way of doing it. In terms of securing it, you might think of copyright. That could be one way. But also in terms of security, you might think of your payment gateways as part of your website.
Yeah, that's what I want. Because
does anyone else want to have a go?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Sorry, can you repeat?
I can hear.
Okay. Can you hear me? What I'm thinking is that I sell artwork too, and they may be concerned about how it's going to look in their place.
Sorry, scale. Can you repeat, Lauren?
I sell artwork too, and the concern, I'm sure, is how is it going to look in my place?
How is it going to look in your place?
And their place, yes.
Yes. Like, where would they put it? How can they visualize it?
How would it look? It's one thing seeing it as a piece of artwork, but would it fit with my furniture and everything else?
Correct.
And the scale and all of that. How is it going to work?
And then this is where you would have to ask them, like, how would that help them better understand how that fits?
Well, there's apps which I haven't bought, which you can use to show how it will look in a particular they have rooms that you can place it in, but there's other apps too, I believe, that you can use their own place and scale it into there. So that would be a solution.
Yep, that could be one way. So to measure it.
But I think it would be worth doing. But I'm like Sandra, I'm building my website at the moment
as well. Okay. So these are questions. So what you're saying in terms of how people might want to know, like they might want to visualize how that might look like within a room, or how might that fit? Yeah. How might that fit with their furniture? These are things that you need to find out from them, right? So for example, you might ask, let's say I'm a buyer from you, I want art from you. You might ask me questions about, okay, how do you best know when, like what fits into your room? Like, where would you see your piece of art going? And then whatever answer I'd reply. So let's say I would say, actually, I just moved into a new house. There's a big living room with a big wall, and I'd love to put a big painting. This is where you would say, okay, why? Because me telling you just a big painting is not enough. So this is where you would ask your users why. And then when I say, well, why, is because I actually don't like the fact that the wall is just white. I love colors. I want to feel that space. And then you'd ask why. Well, because I love the fact that, like, you know, the room can feel homey and welcoming. Yeah. So you see where I'm going? This is part of the 5 whys. So you keep asking those 5 whys, because then you get to the bottom of what your users are actually thinking. And then from there, that's how you can place what you are offering as part of their journey. Yeah, good idea. It's really good.
I don't think it works like that, because they choose what you've got to do. You know, you put your work online, and they choose something or want to choose something, but those doubts are there. So what you've got to do is you've got to present it in a way that they feel confident to make a choice.
Exactly. And in order for them to feel confident to make a choice, you need to know how that will make them confident. Yep. So to make them feel confident, and especially online, it's a lot harder, right? They're not at a physical place. So you need to ask them, how do they actually purchase certain things that are visual? It could be the same thing as purchasing furniture. For example, IKEA is a great example for that. IKEA now has an app where you can place one of their furnitures into your room, and then it helps you visualize where that might happen. So this is a way that you could think of that way. So Shanab says, I think it's important to communicate the vision and values in the first stage of the process, when customers are looking throughout your Facebook, social media pages. So customers know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and to connect with you on a deeper level. Absolutely. Now, remember, you're talking about the vision and values that you want to provide. How does that fit with your user's journey? Remember that it's every step, right? You think of when you buy something online, think about how a problem comes to your mind, how you need to solve it. So you end up going onto your website, on a website of a business, then you're searching that information that would respond to you. In the same way for the vision and values, the vision and values need to communicate what your users are telling you, because that's how they'll know why you're doing what you're doing, and that's how they connect with you deeply. So just to recap this free 3-part series that we learned, we learned in the first place how you can engage your users or customers to drive loyalty to your business and boost your sales, how every dollar invested in UX design can bring a return on investment of $100 into your business, and how you can understand the journey of your users' experience with your website by testing the usability of your website with them. You've also learned how you can dive deep into your users' minds, emotions, and motivations with the user-centered design canvas to think about your users' problems from a big picture point of view by making small focused changes and position your offering with confidence. And to recap, in part 1, we looked at the nuances between customer experience and user experience. The customer experience is the way customers think of their relationship with your brand or your company or your product, so your services. Whereas user experience focuses on a specific user interaction with with your product, with your business. So a website or an app is one touch point as part of the whole customer experience. And it looks at how your website performs with these people, so your users who get onto your website or to your app regularly. And in this series, we use the term user experience because we were focusing on the specific interaction of your customer's journey with your website or your app. UX is the experience the user gets from going to the journey from landing on your website or downloading your app to the result of what they wanted to get there in the first place. It's about what people actually do and not what they say they do. In part 2, I showed you how businesses invested in user experience design and how they uncovered their users' experience with their app or website. For one small business, behind the number of downloads or app, you saw that this business had to scratch the surface to get to the bottom of why their customers interacted with their app in a certain way. And at the end of the day, just like with TurnPath, you and your customer's goal is to buy from you or book an appointment from you or find information about your offer. And you saw how important it is to validate your assumptions about what you think you know about your users. And you do this through interviews and by observing how they act or what they do with your website. And just like with TurnPath, we had noticed that we needed to remove some features to reduce the number of steps people had to take to create an account. This meant that their users were more confident in knowing what the app was for, as well as more engaging. They were engaging a lot more with the app. So know if you're solving your customers' problems, observe how your users interact with your website or app, and simplify the process for your users to stay engaged with your app. In that same session, you also experience how you can use your users' feedback to make sure that your website works to match the needs of both your customers and your business. And just like this small business who provides a mental health service recovery called Anti-Psychosocial Recovery and Support Services, that business used the user-centered design canvas to help her think about her users' problem, so young people who were her users, from a big picture point of view and focus to the nitty-gritty to make sure that the right features were in place on her website, so that when young people came onto her website, they can actually have a smooth experience with her. Then go out there and interview with your users, listen to what their experiences with similar services has been, and empathize with their journey. You'll discover if you're targeting the right group of people, you'll hear about how they communicate their problems, their motivations and fears. And that can actually help you in how you communicate your vision and values as part of your business. And this makes you very different to your competition, because then it positions you ahead of your competition. But also remember that when you build your website, you need to build a mobile version, because most people will look and find information through their mobile phones. And today you learn practical skills into getting exclusive access to your users' minds, their emotions, and motivations. And that's the part of user experience design, where you find out about your customers' previous behaviors of similar experiences, or the roadblocks they faced with previous competitors, and the motivations that they have to find a solution to their problem. And it's what we call pain points. When you identify their problem, you need to ask them at least 5 whys so that you get to the bottom of your customers' problems, their motivations, and their fears. And we took the example of a customer whom we named Chanel, who is a regular swimmer who suddenly stopped swimming. And then we used the user-centered design canvas to help us identify 3 aspects of your business and your users and your users. And one of them that we need to ask is, how well does my business satisfy my users' expectations? How well do I empathize with my customers' problems? And how well does my business offer a solution compared to others? And in answering these 3 questions, and by having your users' feedback, you're guaranteed to increase your conversion. Because with every dollar invested in user experience design, you can bring a return on investment of $100 into your business. If you want to get a user experience health check on your website or app, contact me at hello@propelinnovations.co for a free checklist on how you can improve your website or app to meet your customers' expectations. If you have any questions, you can also contact me at hello@propelinnovations.co. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at Propel Innovations, and on Twitter at Propel_UX. Thank you very much for your time and for interacting with me during this presentation and throughout all 3 webinars. Thank you and have a good day. No worries, Shanav. Thank you. Lovely meeting you as well. No problem, Sandra. And if you guys want a copy of the slides, just let me know, or send me an email at hello@propelinnovations.co. I will leave my email in the chat. Thank you. Have a good day. See ya.
Oops. Meant to have it in.